Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry, episode 4. And in the previous video, we really saw a wicked side to the witch variation of Maria. And she was just losing it, straight up constantly killing her own mother. But at least she's actually seeing that no, her mother's not a good person whatsoever. And we actually saw a bit of the truth as to what Rosa was supposedly up to during the times that she could not come home to her own daughter. She was out with a guy, which I predicted very correctly. However, the guy is also a bit of an asshole because he's cheating on his wife. So both of these characters are just terrible in different ways. But you could also say the guy was doing better because he admitted that what he was doing was wrong, and he also wanted Rosa to do her best. Well, that's not important. But here we are back in reality, back on Rokkenjima, and 6 people are now dead, and I'm assuming that the 4 here are going to get interviewed by big guy Kinzo.
近いんじゃねえか?みたいだね。いくつになっても落雷にはビクッとさせられるね。
Oh, George. You haven't even realized it yet, but both of your parents are dead. Battler was looking at the dark night through a crack in the curtains. Every once in a while, a pale white lightning bolt would shine, and he seemed to be enjoying it. You get over there, Maria?
なんだよ。バトラが騒がしくしてるからマリアが起きちゃったじゃねえか。ごめんな、マリア。バトラが騒がしくて。
Yeah, he tends to do that. He just tends to be loud.
なんだよ、俺のせいかよ。悪いな、マリア。寝てていいぞ。おやすみな。
Maria was a bit hazy with drowsy eyes. She was probably half asleep and couldn't think straight.
もういい。寝ない。
いいから寝てろって。まだ寝ぼけてるぜ。
寝ぼけてない。
なんだよ、もろに寝ぼけてるじゃねえか。寝てろ寝てろおい。寝ぼけてない、寝ぼけてない。
Now this is the Maria that we all unfortunately know.
よせってバカバトラ。もう寝起きのこの機嫌を悪くするなんてバカだな。寝ぼけてない、寝ぼけてないもん。
What is her deal? She's having a rough time here.
わかってるよ、マリアちゃん。寝ぼけてなんかないよ。だから落ち着いて。寝ぼけてないもん、寝ぼけてないもん。
Why is she so hung up on that? Maybe it was because of her delicate mental state after waking up, but Maria suddenly threw a tantrum. And Battler had only been trying to tease her a bit, so he was confused by this extreme overreaction. George held her head, trying to calm her down, but Maria's tantrum wasn't going to be quelled easily. Battler and Jessica were trying to push the blame on each other, saying, "It's your fault." Well, it's your fault too.
こら、2人とも静かにして。ジェシカちゃん、ポットにまだお湯があったよね。お茶でも入れてあげてくれる？落ち着いた？マリアちゃん。
It looked like her tantrum was dying down bit by bit, but she still glared at Battler, who had made fun of her with sharp eyes.
バトラ君もふざけて言っただけなんだよ。マリアちゃんが寝ぼけてるなんて思ってないよ。だから落ち着いて。
Yeah, I really don't understand why she got so hung up on what he was saying. George noticed. Maria was staring at Battler with incredible eyes. What the fuck? And despite having just displayed all that emotion, she laughed in a small voice. Why? Instead of a laugh, it seemed more like she was muttering while talking, or while thinking about, or else counting each he. As though each time she said he, something brutal would happen over and over. She's doing a he, not a hi. George felt something creepy for just an instant. but he couldn't spot the madness that peeked out of the depths of the girl's eyes for just a moment. After a short period of stunned silence on George's part, Maria stopped her bizarre, quiet laugh and pushed George's arm aside, as though telling him to let go.
おう、許す。
そう。マリアちゃんは偉いな。バトラ君、マリアちゃんが許してくれたよ。仲直りして。
ああ、悪いな、からかって。許してくれ。
ほら、マリア、仲直りの印にカフェオレ作ってやったぜ。砂糖いっぱい入ってるから甘いぜ。いらない。でも許すよ。魔女だからね。
Uh-huh. One more time, Maria laughed in a creepy, quiet voice. But it was only for a very short time, so Battler and Jessica didn't think much of it. They decided to think that it had probably only looked that way when the lightning lit her cheek with a pale white light for an instant. Crazy weather we're having, huh? At that time, they could hear the sound of loud footsteps coming from the hall. It was already about 10:30, late at night. Late at night is usually a time when you aren't supposed to be disturbed. Hearing footsteps like that at this time was far from calming. Then, along with a clearly ominous knock that repeated fiercely, they could hear Goda and Kumasawa's voices. And that clearly told them that this was an abnormal situation.
お子様方、いらっしゃいますか。いらっしゃいますか。ゴーダでございます。
熊沢でございますよ。ご無事でございますか。みな、どうしたものやら、どうしたものやら。
It seems like they failed to capture Kumasawa and Goda. When George opened the door, the two of them tumbled in, sopping wet. It looked like they had dashed here from the mansion without an umbrella.
どうしたんだよ、二人とも。何があったんだ。
それが、親方様が、旦那様が、皆様方が。
Having a tough time there. Oh shit. What the fuck? What the hell was all that? I guess we're done with that chapter. It was a pitch black room. There were no windows, and with the weak light bulb, one could just barely make out the state of things around them. It appeared to be an old forgotten underground storage room with some kind of dusty furniture haphazardly thrown into it. Well, we've never been here before. However, even with just a little light, one could at least make out that it was probably, or that it probably wasn't a storage room. After all, that room was sealed off with iron bars.
ここはどこなの。
わからん。ここは屋敷の地下なのか。食堂の真下にこんな部屋があったのか。
They had dropped into what had appeared to be a pit, falling into this room. Well, it's possible that, you know, with all the crazy, you know, magical bullshit going on right now, this may not necessarily be right underneath the dining room. Therefore, it was natural to assume that this room was directly under the dining hall. However, not even Krause could bring himself to believe that there were pitfalls rigged in his beloved dining hall, where he had enjoyed his meals for years, and that this dungeon-like room lay directly beneath it. But the ceiling above was of crude stone craftsmanship, and they couldn't understand how they could have fallen from somewhere up there. No, all 5 people who had been dropped here thought the same thing. Although they had had the same sensation of falling into a pit, There was no way there could be pitfalls in the dining hall, nor could this dungeon-like place be directly under it. But the truth was that they actually had fallen into this place and were locked in. So they were confused.
あの高さから落ちて誰も怪我をしなかったのは幸運かもしれませんな。シャノン、カノン、君たちはこんな部屋の存在は知っていたかね。
いいえ、僕たちもこのような部屋のことは存じかねます。
本当に？
本当です。本当にこんな部屋知りません。
Despite their age, Kirie apparently wouldn't have found it odd if they did. As servants allowed to wear the one-winged eagle, might know of the mansion's secret tricks. Which I know that there are some here. There have to be, you know, there just has to be some. Especially with there being a secret mansion, you know, hidden away here on this island. There was a long silence as if Kraus was evaluating their answer.
いや、シャノンたちが知らないのは事実だろう。何しろ、綺麗好きのシャノンだ。彼女がこの部屋を知っていたなら、もっとピカピカに磨き上げているだろう。この部屋の汚さが、君たちがこの部屋を知らないことの証だ。今はそんなことより、これからどうするかの方が先決だと思わんかね。その通りです。警察に、いえ、それから救急にも早く電話をしなければ。
Nanjo's words were hollow. Obviously, 6 people had been killed in the dining hall. Everybody had seen the exact moment when they had been killed. And since half of their heads had been destroyed, anyone could tell that the deaths had been instant with just a single glance. Everyone understood that first aid no longer held any meaning.
ありがとう、南條先生。私たちは伴侶がもう生きてはいないことを理解できてる。気休めでも救急と言い添えてくれてありがとう。
夏井。
Once again, a gloomy silence dominated the atmosphere. But Kraus shook his head harshly over and over, and for the first time being, decided to forget the pain of losing his wife and to dedicate himself to figuring out where they were. Okay, before we do, so I noticed this at the end of the previous episode, or previous video, excuse me. Everybody is still shown as alive. No one has necessarily died here. Well, nobody has been marked as dead. What does that mean? Does that mean that Battler and the others need to find out that they've died first? Also, going back to the witch side, I suppose that we need to read a little bit more as to who is who here. By the way, goddamn, just goddamn. That's all I'm saying about Gap here. It's goddamn. But we have Kinzo, known as Goldsmith. Kinzo's name as a mage is Goldsmith. His skills as a summoner are legendary for the modern age. In terms of summoning ability, there are times when he surpasses even Beatrice. However, he is very mismatched, and while he does excel in some areas, he is fatally lacking as a mage in others. He cannot even perform the trifling magic to reheat a cup of tea. Yet, he can summon demons capable of using magic to boil the oceans. His system of magic is his own, and has its origins in mathematical miracles. Beatrice later reworked her own system of magic based on this. It's actually a very interesting course of events here. So we also have Renove. I don't think we've read about him, but one of the 72 great demons serves a master in exchange for various forms of compensation. Presently has a contract with Beatrice as her butler, or head furniture, that we know. Has multiple underlings trained in housekeeping, and he himself is extremely capable as a butler. Employing him has become a kind of status in the high society of witches. Furthermore, the cookies he bakes are superb, and witches will often line up to demand them. Now he does some good work with the cookies. Should possess enormous magical power, but as he always shows deference to his master, his power level is an unknown quantity. And then there's also Virgilia, the retired endless witch and Beatrice's master, and that we know. Made proper use of the endless magic and dedicated her life to the happiness and smiles of people. Taught Beatrice the endless magic and retired believing that Beatrice would devote herself to people in the same way. As well as being Beatrice's master, she was also the consulting mage of Beatrice's old home. For this reason, Virgilia interacted with her in the manner of a servant. It is said that this was responsible for causing Beatrice's egotism and excesses. So I believe that's also the same, that whole description of her. We also do have all 7 sisters here, and I don't know how differently these descriptions are based on what they are here on the Ange side. Probably maybe like a smidge different. If there's anything that I'm missing, Anything that I do need to read, please let me know in the comments.
親父はもうダメだ。口で言って理解や説明が求められる段階にもうない。
Nobody answered. Without any kind of discussion or mercy, 6 people had been killed in an instant. And Kinzo had even been so bold as to proclaim that we'd become sacrifices for a ceremony involving 13 murders. Well, since we've been locked up in this place, we too will probably become the ceremony's next sacrifices soon. Around this time, our eyes became used to the darkness. And bit by bit, we were able to understand more about the dungeon's interior. What we thought was furniture haphazardly left in the dungeon turned out not to be furniture at all. They were things like small cages to lock people in, restraints, or else torture racks. At any rate, it was obvious that it was eerier than a mere jail cell. Where the hell are we? Why would this place even exist? Since the objects were rusted together and coated in thick dust, there was no doubt that they had been forgotten. Maybe you could even call these things Kinzo's sealed and forgotten madness. However, we had been locked away in this room. Those objects weren't exactly comforting to people who were locked up, hoping to be released without harm. Yeah, that is the big point there, isn't it?
とにかくここを抜け出そう。私たちは伴侶や友人を失い、涙を流すことに時間を費やしたいが、今はそれ以上に子供たちの身が心配だ。
That is true. You should be very much concerned about the children. Kraus still has a daughter to look after. Kirie still has a son, not a biological son, but a son over there at the guest house, as well as a daughter that's waiting back home. George has lost his parents, and I guess Maria is also without her mother. So, you know, not much else going on there, but... Yeah, I mean, there's still concern to be had, even if, you know, they're not necessarily your kids, but, you know, they're still out there.
祈るしかない。そういえば、熊沢さんと郷田さんはここにはいないな。
Yeah, they escaped.
ひょっとすると無事に逃げ延びられたのかも。
かもしれませんな。子供たちと合流しててくれれば心強いのですが。
郷田さんはいざという時頼りになるし、熊沢さんは経験豊富で落ち着いてるし、きっと力になってくれると思います。
そうだといいがな。
Shannon and Kraus smiled bitterly a little, but they quickly realized how improper that was and stopped clearing their throats.
楽観はできないよ、姉さん。僕らに続いてもう襲われてしまってる可能性だってある。
同感ね。お父様が食堂で執行したのは魔女の碑文の第1の番の6人殺しなんでしょ。なら第2の番は寄り添いし2人を引き裂け、逃げ隠れて寄り添っている郷田さんと熊沢さんがもう殺されている可能性だって否定できないわ。
Honestly, a really good prediction right there. Because in the previous episodes, how it's gone down. In episode 1, it was Ava and Hideyoshi. So, you know, obviously they love each other, they're together, married, so they fit the bill. In episode 2, it was... who was it? I can't remember. Episode 3, who was it in episode 3? It was Maria and Rosa. Yeah, you know, daughter and mother. I think episode 2 would have been... I don't remember what episode 2's was. I really don't for some reason. I'm sure it'll come back to me. I don't want to say that it's, you know what? I think it was Kanon and Jessica. Maybe. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was. Either way, relationships. Two characters in a relationship of some sort. So, this one would be different if it was Goda and Kumasawa, however, they are sticking together here. Kirie coldly analyzed the worst-case scenario. For her, it was heartbreaking to have lost her beloved husband. But right now, the most important thing was protecting that husband's son, along with the other children, from becoming the insane family head sacrifices. She overcame her sadness with the parental urge to protect children from sorrow. It seemed that both Kyrie and Kraus were both strong enough to forget about the grief, if only for the time being. They would let their tears flow later. In order to protect the children, they had to act. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, have we ever had a case where the same group or same person died in multiple of the same Twilights? Like, excluding the first Twilight, the first Twilight's always a different group of people, you know? Like, it's always going to shuffle around. It's never going to be the exact same group. In the second Twilight, it's another group of two. So far, it has not been the same two people. And for the rest, has it been the same person for the same Twilight? I don't know about that. I'd have to kind of list them all out, but that is an interesting thing to think about. I don't know if it'll ever lead to anything.
ここにはガラクタがいろいろあるわ。武器になるものがあるかもしれないし、鉄格子を破れるものがあるかもしれない。
Kyrie pulled a lighter from her pocket. She herself didn't smoke, but she kept one tucked away in her pocket to light Rudolph's cigarettes. It was an extremely valuable source of light for searching in this dim dungeon.
シャノンはキリエさんを手伝い、カノンは私と一緒に鉄格子の具合を確かめてみよう。これだけ古い牢屋だ。ひょっとするとガタが来ているかもしれない。
Nanjo, you just go ahead and yeah, you go ahead and do your own thing.
体力を温存していてください。やがてここに親父殿が現れるだろう。親父殿に言葉が届くのは南條先生だけです。ある意味、南條先生に我々の命は握られているかもしれない。
私の言葉などもう届きはせんでしょう。申し訳ないが、そのお役には立てそうにない。
なら、南條先生のお医者としての知識を貸してください。人間を即座に混沌させるような毒って存在するのかしら？
Probably.
人間を即座に混沌させる毒？どういうことですか？
私たちは落とし穴に落とされて、この地下牢に落ちてきたと信じている。あの混乱している場で、私たちはそうだったろうと信じたわ。でも、この地下牢の広さを測ってみて分かった。この地下牢があの食堂の地下というのはありえないことなのよ。
どうしてありえないってわかるんですか？
姉さんはバカだな。この地下牢は食堂に比べて狭すぎる。
その通り。1番目に落とされたのはクラウス兄さん。2番目が私。クラウス兄さんはこの部屋に落ちてきた時、その場を動いたかしら。
お恥ずかしながら落下の痛みでうめいていたよ。そのすぐ傍らにキリエさんがすぐに落ちてきたんだ。
食堂でのクラウス兄さんと私の立ち位置と落下時の落下場所の距離が明らかにおかしいのよ。
確かに言われてみればその通りです。その次に落ちたのは私だから、お二人の位置関係はよく覚えている。食堂でのお二人の間の距離はこの部屋よりもあったかもしれない。
私たちは落とし穴に落ちてダイレクトにここに落下したわ。集合する下水道管みたいに一度集められてからここに落ちたわけじゃない。
I mean, I really doubt it, but we could have all come down here Mario style. You really don't know.
そんな凝った排水管みたいな穴を転がされた覚えはないわ。
確かに落とし穴では説明がつかんな。おかしな話だ。
それとキリエ様のおっしゃる人間を即座に混沌させる毒というのはどう関係があるんですか？
That everybody here passed out.
キリエ様は多分食堂に落とし穴なんかなかった。
しかし現に私たちは落ちたぞ。
Yeah, to the floor.
落とし穴に落ちたような気がするが正解よ。無理もないわ。そうとしか例えられない体験だったから。
なるほど。つまりこうおっしゃいたいわけですな。私たちは落とし穴に落とされたのではなく、例えば毒矢のようなもので撃たれ瞬時に意識を失い、まるで落とし穴に落ちたよと思い込んでしまっているのかもしれないと。
I mean, in a similar way to kind of thinking whenever you're going to sleep, you think that you're falling down because of a dream, that you're falling, you know, either into a pit or onto the floor. You have a falling sensation, but then you wake up. You're not falling, you're lying down.
なるほど。
Now, I know I'm not the only one that has ever experienced that, by the way. I actually looked it up, and that is an actual thing that people do experience. If you guys have gone through it, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and it's such an annoying thing.
食堂に無数の落とし穴が仕掛けられていて、我々がそれに何十年も気づかず食事をしていたとするよりは。
姉さん、時計はある？
うん。懐中時計があるわよ。22時40分くらいね。
So, what, almost 2 hours have passed?
僕の時計もそうなってる。つまり僕たちは食堂での大騒ぎか
Oh, okay.
ら十数分も時間を経過させてないってことになる。
They have a better telling of the time than I do.
私の時計も同様だ。我々が混沌させられてどこかへ担ぎ込まれたと仮定するには、時間の経過が短すぎる。時間だけを見るなら、やはり我々は食堂の真下へ落とし穴で落とされたと考えるのが妥当だ。
But how would that work? There's no sign of
時計の針なんて
that.
いくらでもいじれるわ。私たちが気絶している間に全員の時計を巻き戻したのかもしれない。その可能性がなかったことは証明不能よ。
落とし穴にせよ、混沌させる毒にせよ、私たちは用心するに越したことはないというわけですな。
Yeah, and that we need to get the fuck out of here.
それで南條先生、混沌させる毒は存在するんですか？
それは桐江さんの論法と同じですな。私の知らない未知の毒物にそういう効用のものがないとは証明できません。
用心に越したことはないということね。ごめんなさい。無駄な質問だったわ。ただ私の仮説により、この地下牢が食堂の真下とは限らないという可能性は示唆できたと思う。
なるほど。広大な森の中のどこかに隠されていると噂される親父殿の隠し屋敷の地下牢に運び込まれている可能性もある。
Yeah, there we
とい
go.
うここを脱出して外へ
There
出
we
れば
have
そ
it.
れもわかる。それを詮索するのはここから出てからでもいいだろうな。
その通りね。本当にごめんなさい。さっきから無駄な質問と詮索ばかりだわ。
いや、とても頼もしいよ。今後も何かに気づいたら教えてくれたまえ。ここを脱出する何かのヒントになるかもしれない。ルドルフからいつも聞かされていたよ。君の発想にはいつも驚かされ、時には重要なヒントにもなるとね。君がここにいてくれたのは不幸中の幸いだ。
Oh, absolutely. No, she is ridiculously smart when it comes to this stuff. She can flip that chessboard upside down like crazy.
ありがとう。私もルドルフさんに聞いてるわ。クラウス兄さんは普段は威張っているけれど、いざという時は責任感にあふれる頼りがいのある兄だって。
さすがにそれは世辞が過ぎるね。くそ。それにしても頑丈な鉄格子だ。
Yeah, everything in this fucking place is rusting except the iron bars here.
カノンの方はどうかね。
いいえ、こちらも全く。
Kraus and Kanun tried wiggling the bars in various ways. There were a few bars that could be twisted, and a few had enough space to rattle a little bit around in, but they couldn't be broken with human strength alone. However, there was still hope if they could use some kind of lever-like tool. It was still far too early to give up yet. The children's lives were hanging in the balance. Even if there was no hope, they couldn't stop their struggle. And it was better for them to act this way. If they were to stop, there's no doubt that they'd once again be overcome by the grief of losing their loved ones and curl up, clutching their knees. Yeah. No bad thoughts. No sad thoughts. Are we going back to the guest house? Nope, we're still here.
何か見つかったかね。
握って隠せる程度の石ころは見つかるわ。こんなものでも武器にはなるかも。さすがに鉄格子を削り取ることは無理でしょうね。シャノンちゃんはどう？
いいえ、何も。
Hey, yo.
これ、電話です。
Oh, so there is a bit more to this room than I thought.
つながってるわけもないわ。でも、コードは何かを縛ったり、武器にも使えるかも。
I would also suggest picking it up and seeing, you know, if there's a dial tone. If there is, then, you know, what the hell?
壊して分解すれば、金属部品を取り出せるわ。クラス兄さん、鉄格子を開ける鍵穴はもちろんあるわよね。
ああ、だいぶ鍵穴の大きい大時代的なものだがね。針金のようなものでいじれば騙せるかもしれないな。
電話の金属部品で何か代用できるかもしれない。その電話、武器になるわね。
投資と同じだよ。情報は武器だ。
Kraus and Kirie laughed together at how they hadn't even thought of using the phone as a means of communication. I mean, it is a phone.
その電話つながってるかなって思って。
バカだな、姉さんは。
Wait, what are you whispering about? Is it just this? Oh no, he is whispering something else. At that point, Shannon let out a small surprised cry.
キリエ様、この電話つながってます。
なんですって？
It was like when people move out of an office, taking everything with them, leaving only the telephone behind. That's the feeling the phone gave off, having been left in the corner of the cell. The cord was wound into a coil, the tip of it being swallowed by the wall. And just looking at it, there was no reason to assume that it wasn't hooked up. But to think that it was actually... Wait, but to think that it was actually what the fuck? Kirie took the receiver from Shannon and pressed it to her ear. Certainly, the electric hum of a phone was a familiar sound, and this phone was certainly live.
なんという幸運。警察へ連絡しましょう。
待ちたまえ。話がうますぎる。
It really is.
盗聴されているんじゃないのかね。
そんな細工するくらいなら、普通は電話線を切断するわ。電柱が本気で見落とした可能性が高い。気づかれたら、今度こそ電話線を切断されるかもしれないわ。警察への通報を盗聴されて何も困ることはないのだし。
Surely that was true. The point of a wiretap is to overhear some important piece of information. But the way things were right then, she couldn't think of a single thing that would come up in a conversation to the outside world that might be troublesome to have overheard. Kirie instantly concluded that it was more likely to be a mistake on Kinzo's part than a trap.
確かに一理あります。外線は確か0番からだ。
カノン君、私は電話するから、あなたは外の様子を伺ってくれる？誰かが近づいてくる気配があったら知らせて。
はい。
Kanon raced off towards the iron bars, silenced his breathing, and strained his ears. As everyone present watched her, Kirie dialed 110. Alrighty. However, she pushed the hook down and redialed many times. It didn't seem to be working very well.
外線は0番から ?110 番は0110じゃないの？うまくかからない。
貸したまえ。私がかけよう。
Kraus took the receiver in Kirie's place and tested various things. Like a regular phone number, maybe? Just to see if we can get a call through. But in the end, they were unable to notify the police. The phone itself was definitely live, but the circuit was apparently cut somewhere. Did this mean that they were not so naive?
やっぱり無理ですか。
敵も甘くはないってことね。
Well, now what? Kirie let out a deep sigh, leaned against the wall, and hung her head for a while. As cool thinking as she was, for a brief moment, she may actually have had the naive hope that the phone might actually work. She sneered at herself mockingly for holding onto that naive hope for even a single moment. Then she remembered just what was happening here. Truth be told, even after being shown a scene like that right before her eyes, or rather, exactly because of that, she still couldn't think of that gruesome mass murder as something real. It was less than she could have believed it, and more that she didn't want to. Ushiromiya Kinzo killed 6 family members. Did he, though? Here's the interesting part, you know, what I'm sort of thinking of here. So, this event, could it have happened? Hard to say, because I think everybody here is going to die regardless. The story that will get out to the public can't be this story. So, everything that's going on here, you know, I'm sure there's takeaways for us, the viewer. However, I think everybody here will die. The supposed story that's been presented to us won't be able to get out there. And you could say that that was very similar to what happened in episode 3, with Ava being the sole survivor. She didn't talk about any magical stuff going on. I mean, she didn't witness something as crazy as this necessarily. But then we also go back to what I brought up earlier. We have the character log, but no deaths, because we have not identified as anybody as actually dead. Even so, so many characters witnessed the deaths this time around. They have not been identified as dead. That conclusion has not been arrived to yet. Why? Why is there such a delay? He summoned strange witch-like demon-like people right out of thin air, and with something like magic began to kill people one after another. It's just all screwed up. Even though she definitely saw it, there was no way she could accept that spectacle.
そんなことあるわけがない。あれはきっとお父様の友人か何か。それがあらかじめ食堂のどこかに隠れていて、手品的に突然姿を現して私たちを驚かせただけなんだわ。そう考えなくちゃあのめちゃくちゃを説明できない。
Yeah, there's some crazy bullshit going on there. But when those 6 had had their heads blown apart, a golden arrow had flown around and around the room. That had truly looked like magic. Was that another thing we just saw wrong? There's no way it was magic. It was definitely some kind of setup. Since those heads were smashed, there's no doubt it was some kind of explosive. For example, I don't know what that is, a styrene toy plane like they sell at candy stores, painted gold, and with a powerful explosive loaded onto the end of it. However, though it had seemed to be flying about at random, Kirie couldn't imagine that after being fired 6 times, each time it perfectly hit the victim square in the head, one after the other. It couldn't be that there was a computer control system for finding and hitting targets, making it a high-tech styrene plane on the same level as a guided missile, right?
そんなバカバカしい仕掛けを膨大な私費を投じて作らせたと？あのおかしな余興のために？お父様ならやりかねないって？
A number of mysterious people appeared out of thin air. 6 people had had their heads demolished by a mysterious golden flying object. And the 5 of us were locked away in a mysterious dungeon by a mysterious set of pitfalls, or else put to sleep by some fainting poison dart. The family conference started a bit after 22 o'clock. I thought it was at, actually, you know what? Yeah, that's 10 o'clock, okay. See, I'm getting my timing wrong, so that is accurate. For some reason, I was thinking that it started at 8, but no, this is right. Okay, so I guess it being 40 minutes after that, I mean, Kinzo was late himself, and then everything happened, and then you could argue that 30 minutes past the hour, that things started to, you know, occur. It's only been a bit more than 30 minutes since that. Most likely, even though I witnessed it myself, that event took place in such a short period of time, so I still can't understand it and I still can't come to grips with it. For argument's sake, even if we did get a hold of the police, it would probably be impossible for anybody to accurately explain what we saw. Even though I saw it just now, my brain's fried, and I have no confidence in what I saw myself. Kirie tried her hardest to cheer herself out of her overwhelming confusion, to just hold on to her sanity. Yeah, good luck.
くそ、どうなってるんだろう。くそ、くそ。
Kraus started to become desperate, hitting the hook multiple times and resetting the dial. Kraus had also been feigning composure, but he was unable to hide his panic. The more he retried the dial, the more the pretense of serenity peeled away. I don't know what's going on anymore. Kirie couldn't help but pray that the events that had just occurred were a dream. At that time, the look on Kraus's face changed. What's up, Kraus?
呼び出してる。呼び出してるぞ。
Got through to who, though?
コール音がする。
本当ですか、クラウスさん。
なるほどな。親父め、朝警察に連絡されまいと外部への電話線は切断したらしいが。
Ah, there we go.
内線は切断し損ねている。
内線？クラウスさんはどこにかけているの？
ゲストハウスだ。ジェシカたちの部屋の内線番号にかけている。もしもし、もしもし、私だ。お前は誰か？ゴーダか？ジェシカはいるか？無事か？
Come on, show us the other side of things.
旦那様、ご無事でよかった。はい、ジェシカお嬢様たちも皆さんご無事です。
父さんなの？無事でよかった。母さんは無事なの？
But let's not talk about that right now.
そこにいるの？
Kraus choked on his words. Kraus had clearly seen Natsuhi's head crushed, had seen her killed right before his eyes. Eventually, he was going to have to tell that to Jessica. However, Kraus began to fret over whether he should tell her now or not, and lost his words. But even that was an answer under these circumstances.
母さんはわからない。無事を祈ろう。
Man.
今はお前だけでも無事でよかった。
I mean, this is the first time that we're, you know, able to have Kraus alive past the first night. Jessica's voice was filled with tears. Kraus was certain now. Jessica and the rest had heard everything start to finish after meeting up with Goda and Kumasawa at the guest house. When they learned that 6 people had been killed, they must have been anxious to rush over to the dining hall. Luckily, he had been able to call before they'd stormed off towards the mansion. Kraus was relieved at this good timing during such a tragedy.
ここには今、キリエさんと南條先生、それにシャノンとカノンがいる。地下牢のようなところに閉じ込められているが、心配するな。こっちは父さんたちで何とかする。
地下牢？どこ？助けに行く。
あいにく、私たちにもここがどこだか見当もつかん。食堂の真下だと思っているが、そうでないかもしれない。とにかくジェシカ、そこを出てはならん。ゴーダたちから経緯は聞いているか？
みんな
おじい様は今正常な状態にない。出くわせは危険だ。殺されるかもしれない。私たちを助けに来ようなどと絶対に思ってはならんぞ。こっちはこっちで何とかする。
じゃあ私たちはどうすればいいの？小さなめ、よくも母さんたちを、あの死に損ないぶっ殺してやる。
ジェシカ、そんな言葉を使ったら母さんが悲しむぞ。レディーはそんな言葉を使うもんじゃない。とにかくお前たちは身の安全を最優先にしろ。ゲストハウスを戸締まりするんだ。しかし過信はできない。1階のラウンジの大窓は破られるかもしれない。その部屋にとどまり、ベッドを立てかけてバリケードにするんだ。その部屋にはトイレも冷蔵庫もあるな。明日の朝までは籠城できるはずだ。いいな。くれぐれも物騒なことは考えるな。母さんの仇を取ろうなんて絶対に考えるんじゃないぞ。相手を刺激せず、隠れてやり過ごすことだけを考えるんだ。
Actually, wait a minute. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Kraus actually did make it past the first night in the previous episode. Him and Natsuhi. Yeah, because they all... It was only the servants and Kinzo that died in episode 3. So it was basically up to the Ushiromiya family plus Nanjo to stay alive over in the guest house. And they really had a good idea going for them there. they should have been able to stay alive, but I don't know, people are dumb, and they, you know, left. Like I said in a previous video, whenever we got back to the playthrough here, it's been a while since I've played. I'm gonna have to remember things slowly but surely. Give me like, I don't know, 5 months to get it all back. After that, Goda took the phone and was firmly told to supervise the kids well as an adult. Goda, with his face covered in a cold sweat, repeatedly replied, yes, sir, in an excessively tense voice. From there, Kirie took the receiver and spoke with Battler, and when Shannon and Kanun got their turns, George and Jessica answered. Following that pattern, Nanjo and Kumasawa picked up as well, so that all members of both sides took the receiver in turn, confirming that everyone was safe for now, even if their location was unknown, and encouraging each other, coming to an understanding on the current situation for both sides. They wanted to talk forever, but now was not the time to chat. Kraus explained that they would be hanging up for now, and those in the guest house consented. Yeah, until the internal phone lines don't work. Uh-huh. Yes, specify your father and then also Kanun. With that, the phone call ended. I wonder, maybe the that dungeon that they're in, could that maybe be in the same vicinity as the as where the gold is hidden? Because it seemed to be in such a desolate area here on the island, far away from everything and really kind of like an area of its own. Goda and the rest of the men quickly descended to the first floor, closed the shutters, and secured the sturdy locks on the doors. Damn, it would really suck if somebody was already in the guest house. However, just as Kraus had worried, there was nothing that could be done about the beautiful, wide window in the first floor lounge. If someone broke that, it would be easy to get inside. It wouldn't be hard for someone like Kinzo, who hadn't hesitated at committing murder, to invade the first floor.
おじいさまたちは武装している可能性が高い。部屋に閉じこもるのが最善かつ唯一の籠城方法になるね。自ら密室に閉じこもらざるを得ないのは苦しいところだけど、相手が銃を持っていたらそれしか方法がない。
親方様は実銃のコレクションをお持ちとの話です。そう、あれは銃だ。銃だったんだ。だとしたら恐ろしい威力の銃だ。
As guns tend to be.
とても太刀打ちはできません。
頭を砕くなんてすげえ威力だぜ。マグナム弾とかそういう類のやつかもな。下手な扉なら平気で貫通するかもしれねえな。
だとすればますますに部屋に籠城するべきだね。ベッドを立てかけて窓も塞ごう。そこまですればいくら銃を持っていても踏み込むことはできないはず。
くそ、そんな受け身な防戦一方しかねえのかよ。くしょう。うちの親父に上等を決めてくれてキリエさんまで捕まえたなんて、こいつは高くつくぞ。クソじじいめ。
無理です。あんな連中に太刀打ちできるわけがありません。しかも親方様だけでなく手下も何人も。あるいはあんな連中がもっといるかも。
Well, there are now.
あいつらは一体何なんだ。
Battler was filled to the brim with the urge to get revenge for Rudolph and to rush out here to, you know, save Kirie, or to rush out of here. But just by looking at how terrified Goda was, there was no doubt in him that this would be reckless.
兄貴だって悔しいだろ。なのにここで籠城なんて。くしょ。
もちろんさ。僕だって悔しいよ。両親を殺されて冷静でいられるわけがない。
Honestly, you're doing pretty okay here in this episode.
でもだからこそ冷静にならなくちゃいけない。 僕たちが無駄に命を落とすようなことを殺された親たちが望むと思うかい？思うわけがない。せめて子供だけは逃げ延びてほしいと願ってるはずだ。だから僕は生き残るよ。そして警察に通報し、全てを暴く。
And you know, continuous respect for George.
仇は法廷が取る。それが僕の復讐だ。差し違えてでも仇を取ってほしいなんて、そうだろう。
そうだな、兄貴の言う通りだぜ。ちくしょう、クソじじいめ。何か儀式だ。俺たちがそのための生贄だって言うなら、意地でも逃げ切ってその儀式を台無しにしてやるぜ。
それでいいよ。それにバトラ君にはまだキリエさんがいる。僕にだってシャノンがいる。とにかく慎重に行動してチャンスを待とう。僕たちの不用意な行動は囚われの彼らに不利益を与える可能性だってあるんだから。
You know, Battler also has his sister, right?
人質。でも
Come on, can't forget about Ange.
キリエさんたちを生贄にするために捕らえたわけだろ。俺たちが助けなきゃ殺されるのを待つだけじゃないのか。
彼らが捕らえられている地下牢がどこにあるかもわからない。シャノンもカノン君も、もちろんゴーダさんも熊沢さんも知らなかった。おじい様だけしか知らない秘密の場所にある可能性が極めて高い。そんな状況下でうろうろと歩き回るのは自殺行為だよ。
わかってるよ。それでもくそ、俺たちはここで何かが起こるまで引きこもってるしかねえってのかよ。
バトラ様のお気持ちはわかりますが、ここは安全第一で参りましょう。旦那様の話では相当古い牢屋らしいので、なんとか鉄格子を破れるかもしれないとのことでした。今は信じて待つ方が賢明です。
おじい様の手下が何人もいて、みんな武装しているんだよね。
そして多分みんな武装を。
Goda had been able to say that Kinzo had comrades with him, but he hadn't been able to mention that they were mostly young women like witches who had used strange magic to murder. If he had said that, it would only have cast doubt on his sanity. No, not only that, he himself still couldn't understand what he had seen, and was doubting his own sanity. Shit, I would too. But regardless of sex or appearance, regardless of whether it was done with magic or a gun, the fact that those girls had followed Kinzo's orders and had, killed 6 people in an instant was an unshakable truth. If that group came to attack the guest house as well, what would happen? Just closing the doors and windows like this was surely meaningless. Yeah, I mean, they'll break in at any moment, really. That fucking chair there at that window. I remember that shit from the previous episode. That's still just... What a strange spot for a chair. Goda and Kumasawa, the only thing left for those two who had witnessed that massacre in the dining hall was to cradle their heads without knowing how to interpret what they had seen.
Kumasawa-san, 大丈夫?
No, she's really not. I don't know how she's dealing with any of this, honestly. She probably has it worse because of her age. But we'll wrap it up there. We'll call it good on this one. Yeah, I didn't realize that we were, entering a whole new chapter there. And I don't know how many chapters are here in this episode, but we might be in a home stretch eventually. Not right now, but, we're getting there. And hopefully we get there before we hit 100 hours of total playtime there on that clock. I think we're, an hour plus on the actual, full time used, but, whatever. Anyways, thank you all for tuning into this one. What a wild one this was. It's really ramped up. It's still very confusing, but at least we're grounded a bit, At least we're, in one spot and not jumping around the timeline and whatever else with, magical beings and whatever the fuck else was going on with Ange. So, I prefer this. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.